All right, Dr. Bressman is here. Baruch Hashem. Let's go. Dr. Bressman said we should put this year on YouTube, Menachem Mendel. You know, maybe he's got a point. All right, let's go. All right, so yesterday we were learning about the change in the world that happened as a result of the flood, and how the world became possible to always do teshuvah, to always rise again. After the world had descended in Parshas Bereshis and detached itself from godliness, so it became stuck. And Parshas Noach comes along, and the Mabul comes along, and the Mabul is a mikveh, and it purifies the world, and it makes the world to be in a state that it's always possible to be elevated. But what does that really mean? It's always possible to be elevated. How does that work exactly? There are situations that you're down, but you're able to be sensitive to something higher. And there's situations when you're down and you can't imagine things getting better. One of the things I learned in that course I did last year at Didi Hirsch about suicide, was that suicide is a result of a person looking at their life's future and all different scenarios that are happening in their life, different challenges, block their vision. They cannot see a better future. And so the role of someone who's trying to help their friend from stopping to commit suicide is to let them breathe, and which for an adult, breathing is connected to oxygen. For an adult, someone actually hearing you and feeling you is like oxygen, and then they're able to that breath, just opens their mind, and maybe they could see something else. It's not just about showing them something they didn't see. They can't hear you. Anyway, so I don't know if you remember when Rabbi Shais Taub spoke here in Chayel 2 years ago. Shared an incredible story about a policeman who worked in Francisco by the Golden State Bridge. His role was to, I think it's number 2 spot in the world for suicide, maybe number 1 in America, something like that. And his job is to try to figure out who the people are, and if they committed suicide, and why they committed suicide, and was there any foul play. So he said in his 20 years of work, nothing really surprised him because he's seen everything. But one thing stays in his head you can't let go of. And that is, there's a guy, they discovered his body, and that he's a 10-minute walk from the Golden State Bridge. And they go to his house and they find a small little note which says the following: I'm going to kill myself today. If somebody says hello to me, someone says, how are you? If someone even smiles at me, someone even looks at me, I'm not going to do this. And so anyway, so there are situations where you are stuck, chas v'shalom, you feel like there's no way out. And then there is a kind of gift that Hashem gives you, that your ears and eyes are open. The previous Rebbe once said that the role of a Hasidic mentor is to create udin deshamin, to create ears that can hear. It's not necessarily you're going to share something that hasn't been shared before. It's not that you're going to give a new insight that wasn't known before. That you're going to open up another sefer that the person that you're sharing with, they don't know that before. The role of mashpia is just to create the ears that can hear. As Rabbi Steinsaltz used to say about Rabbi Shlomo Chaim Kesselman, he used to say that his Farbrengens were very boring, very boring. He used to say the same thing every single time. But one time he went to a Farbrengen and he was so inspired. He tried to figure out what changed, and he realized that the idea of a Farbrengen, in Rabbi Steinsaltz's words, is an ear cleaning. It's meant to clean your ears out, make you sensitive. In a similar way, that's what the role of the Mabul is. The Mabul makes us able to hear the message from Hashem, to hear the code from the Eibishter. There was this man who was an expert in Morse code. He studied he worked in Israel and during various wars, and not just Morse code, also light codes. And Israel was looking for someone to run the Morse code in their submarines, and they announce it in the newspaper, and this guy shows up, and it's a room full of people all trying out for this position, and he's sitting there, and there is music playing, and he just gets up and he walks into it doesn't wait for his turn. He gets up and walks into the office. And the secretary's like, "What do you think you're doing?" And he keeps on walking until he gets into the manager's office. And the manager comes out. The manager says, "I got somebody. You all can go." You're like, it's not fair. You brought us here for a reason. Why don't you at least try us out? What's going on? He says, "Listen, there is this music playing in the background. In the music, there is a code. He heard the code. The code says, don't wait your turn. Get up and come straight to me, straight to my office." So some guy says, "I heard the code too. I also able to hear the code." So the manager says, "Yeah, you heard the code, but he actually got up and did something. He actually left where he was and he went somewhere. You could hear something, or as we learned in Chassidus many times, there's hearing and there's der hearing. Der hearing means that you don't just hear something, but you der hearing, like you're open. You're open to a new horizon, and you're able to go somewhere because of your sensitivity to you're not stuck in where you are." As what did Einstein say? He said something like, you can't solve a problem with the same mindset that led you to the problem in the first place. Trying the same thing, expecting different results is insanity. So that's what the Mabul does to the world. The Mabul makes the world sensitive to Ruchnius, sensitive to spirituality, so that it's possible to be elevated. But not just possible to be elevated, as we learned yesterday, through the Mabul, it became possible to jump to a whole new place that wasn't possible to get to before. We see in Shem today how Parshas Lech Lecha follows Parshas Noach. Lech Lecha is our journeying forward, going to a completely higher place than you ever were at before. And you get to Parshas Lech Lecha only through Parshas Noach. You can't get to Parshas Lech Lecha without Parshas Noach. Chassidus says that when you have two, you can't have a new yesh out of an old yesh. One existence number A cannot create existence number B without there being a vacuum in between. From A to become B, there has to be an empty space in between. Things have to disintegrate first. So, considering the Mabul and Bereshis and Lecha, is exactly the idea. We have Bereshis. The Eibush creates the world. There's a disintegration spiritually, and there's a physical and spiritual disintegration of the world being cleansed by the Mabul. And now Lech Lecha, there's a possibility for a new beginning, for there's a new place to go that you weren't able to get to before. Both because Hashem cleansed the world, made the world sensitive to it, and also because of the descent itself, it summons a higher kind of yearning, a higher kind of drive. And they just published recently this handwritten note of the Rebbe Rashab. Bring this boy into the yeshiva right away, because for whom else has the yeshiva been made? No one really knew what this note was about, but after research, they discovered the following story. There were two brothers who came to Lubavitch. One was 11 years old, and the other, I think, was like 13, 14 years old. They were below the age of acceptance in the Rebbe Rashab's yeshiva. Rebbe Rashab's yeshiva wasn't just a yeshiva. As Rebbe Rashab said, he's making this yeshiva. It's going to be a different yeshiva than other yeshivas. It's a place to, today, Rebbe Rashab said how this yeshiva will give light to the world and will combat those who war against God, those who war against the footsteps of Mashiach, those who war against God. The Rebbe Rashab said, this is a verse in chapter 89 in Tehillim, those who war against God. The Rebbe Rashab spoke about the communists, and especially the Jewish Yevsektia, the Jewish communist movement that tried to eradicate God from Soviet Russia, and how the yeshiva students of this yeshiva that Rashab made, they'll be the ones to fight against them. And as they did, they taught Torah on the ground. And okay, then there's a second line in that verse: those who fight against Mashiach, which means there'll be a time that people may be very religious, but they're weak in their faith in coming to Mashiach. And the role of the yeshiva is to fight the wars of God, and in the next generation, to fight the war of Mashiach, meaning to bring the faith of Mashiach into the world. And okay, I don't have to get into that, but you know what I'm talking about. The yeshiva students are the ones who are the Rebbe's emissaries all over the world, and it's happening. So these two boys came to Lubavitch. One's 11 years old, one's 14 years old. They go through the enrollment process. They get tested, and the young boy, the 14-year-old, 13-year-old, they let him in. He wasn't the right age, but he was smart. He was okay, and they didn't really belong, but they let him in. The 11-year-old, he wasn't the level of an 11-year-old. He wasn't the level of an 11-year-old. He is supposed to be an older age, so there's just no way they could accept him. What did this boy do? His mother given him pocket money for the year. Going to yeshiva, here's pocket money for the year. So instead of going to the yeshiva, they didn't accept him. He decided to stick around the city of Lubavitch, and he got this kretschma, this little inn that people were staying by for a certain amount of money, and he stayed at this kretschma. He didn't want to leave. The Rebbe Rashab would walk to the outskirts of the city of Lubavitch every so often. He would take walks. On one of his walks, he hears this 11-year-old boy crying. The boy is crying and saying, Hashem, please help me be a kosher Jew. I just want to be a kosher Jew. So Rebbe Rashab immediately sent a note to the administration of Timchat Tvimim, of his yeshiva, for whom else, Mahir, express letter, this has to be done right away, for whom else has this yeshiva been made, if not for someone like this? So there is a kind of prayer and a kind of yearning and a kind of new beginning that you're only able to experience if you've gotten rid of the old one. For many of us, this whole quarantine and Corona and whatever, it's an ayin. There's some kind of disintegration, but there's also a message. There's also a code. There's also a message Hashem is telling us to call us to go somewhere else. Noach, walking out of the Teva, saw a new world. It's possible for us also out of Parshas Noach to come to Lech Lecha to have a new kind of way of experiencing our faith in Hashem, our relationship with other people. You can only get it through this kind of Mabul-like state. Sometimes the Mabul, this integration, is what allows there to be this new perspective. Anyways, let's see in Ois number hey, we're on page 61. Deborah's going to explain over here the idea of what we're just discussing, the Noach Lachacha transition. The virtue that is achieved through what happens in Parshas Noach, in comparison to the way the world was in Parshas Bereshis. Rumors of Parshas Lecha Chashmaschil, the Parshas Mincha, the Parshas Noach. This is alluded to by the Parsha of Lechacha, which is read on Parshas Noach. In Parshas Noach at Mincha, we read Parshas Lechacha. So after a full week in the world, the first full week of the world after the holiday season is a week of Parshas Noach. So in Parshas Noach, we read Parshas Lechacha. Parshas Lechacha hints to where we are able to get to through a Parshas Noach. Lech Lecha Meira al Alicha, meet this next column. She be'ena reich la mamari amatzeak v'kedem. The word Lechacha, journeyed for yourself, or more accurately, journeyed to yourself. Just briefly, Chassidus says that the reason why Lechacha means both to depart and to arrive, go away, Lechacha, and also means to arrive into yourself, because the to really discover who you are inside, sometimes it requires you, as we're discussing, to go away from everything you used to before. So Lech Lecha indicates a true movement to a place that is incomparable to the place you were before. That's what Lech Lecha means. Go to a whole new place where you were before. Until Hashem is able to reveal in you your true virtue. As the last words of that verse are, go to the land that I will show you. I will show you doesn't only mean that I will show you something else. I will show you means I will show you who you are. By you journeying forward, you're going to be able to discover something deeper in yourself that you never knew about before, your true essence. Asher Areka, go forward and you'll come to you and I will show you who you are. What this means is they have a pale but ilma tachem miskam to send me to shalach lach Yisrael. Shemchol my when matzav dam yisrael ilm yored harehu kosher muchen malkus leoid el shaydei dasi ben varus achas ha'elam and mashachim galakus beilam. Through a Jew's effort in this lowly world, he is the true reality of every single Jew is revealed, that in every situation he may find himself, even when he is in the very low state, even when he's in a very low world, he's still connected and bound with godliness. And not only is he still bound with godliness, but that the fact that you're in a distant state and still attached, that indicates how attached you are. When you're still in the palace of God and in heaven, you can't see how attached you are. When you go to the world and the world's in a low state and you're still attached, that shows that you're really attached. Number two, not only are you attached, but a Jew is able to show that he's able to reveal godliness in the world. There's a nasa in halicha, gam darksel kuskeviyachol, shemizgala mitzim the achzavai shavayu hulakim shagam shim elakim shakosher mbrisa el mitzusei mitzi shemavayu shemayel mela. By doing this, there is movement. Not only is there movement within the Jew reveals who he is, there's also movement, so to speak, in godliness. That means that not only does he reveal the truth of Hashem in creation, meaning the words of Hashem that animate every single thing in creation, but he's also able to connect to and reveal the infinite light of Hashem that's beyond creation. That's what's accomplished through a Yid's efforts, a Jew's effort in this world, in a world in a very low state. I want to share with you a letter of the Rebbe on this theme. I'm just going to paraphrase from the Hebrew. It's an unbelievable letter. I was lucky to get this letter, to discover this letter. A friend of mine shared this with me because they had written to the Rebbe and they opened up this page. Unbelievable letter. And it's very in sync to what we're discussing about, going through an ayin be'emsa, going through a situation where you don't know what to do, and then because of that, getting to a new entity that you couldn't have come to a new entity had you not lost the first one. So I'm going to paraphrase in the Hebrew. In response to your letter, in which you write that you lack shalva nafshis. Shalva nafshis means peace of soul. Your soul is not at peace. It is explained in many places that these kind of things come from klippa. This idea of lack of peace, feeling a lack of peace, comes from klippa, which also tells us. By the way, when you put your screen on, you just make me smile. Anyway, so it's good to see holy people. Okay, so anyway, so that means that it's not something in your soul itself inside of you. It's something coming on the outside of you. This lack of inner peace isn't something within, it's something without. From this is understood that a person is able to be rid of this disturbance and could completely annihilate this disturbance. And although all people and all situations aren't the same, and therefore the amount of time needed to accomplish this isn't the same, but there is a common denominator, an appropriate path, an appropriate road in all of these various avenues. In other words, in everyone's way out, there's something that we all have in common. And that is, what's the common way out for everybody? It's meditating that every single one of us is a part of our society and our surrounding. And every person has to not only be a recipient, but also to influence, to be a mashpia. And more accurately, the main role is to be an influencer and not to be, and the role of a recipient is only secondary. Since the main part of a person is their soul, is their spirituality, is their, it's called in Kabbalah the tsura. Chomer means the material, tsura means the form, which also is a metaphor for the purpose of something. There's the what stuff is made out of, then there's the design that has to do with what that stuff is for. So there is the main part of a person is his soul and form, not his body and matter and material. So if we're talking about if my main role is to influence, so what am I supposed to use to influence? I have to use my main thing inside. What's my main thing inside? It's my soul, not the material. So how do I do that? It's by permeating my surroundings with the spirit of life, which comes from our Torah, the Torah of life. The Torah, on the one hand, is absolute spirituality. On the other hand, the Torah is able also to impact the lowest kinds of physical material things in this world. As we see in the story of Moshe Rabbeinu went to the get the Torah. So all the angels were complaining, why are you allowing your Torah to be given to these lowly beings? And Hashem said to Moshe, respond to them. Moshe responds to them and says, do you have a Yetzer Hara? Do you go to Mitzrayim? You have a father and mother? Do you live among the nations who swear in the name of their idols? The Torah says, I'm Lord your God, took you out of Egypt. You've never been in Egypt. I'm the Lord your God. Don't have any other idols. Don't have any other gods. If this Torah is addressing people in this world, therefore we deserve the Torah. So the Torah is something that is given to us here in this world. And that's what we're about. We're about spreading and sharing the Torah with our surroundings. And since this is the main role of a person, he is assured that he'll be successful by appropriate effort in this, as long as doesn't let his hands get tired when he encounters difficulties. And even if he doesn't get 100% success the first time, he has to try again and again, and the end is the success will come. So the Rebbe says, so when you put your mind to this, and you think about this very profoundly, very, very deeply, very strongly, very powerfully, you think about this in a way that, like you actually hear it, right? So about you're fulfilling your role in this world. The Rebbe says, new and wider horizons of loftier activities arise before you, and your satisfaction in life gets enhanced significantly. Seeing such an incredible accomplishment, incredible goal you're able to achieve, in a lofty goal to achieve on this world. And this also adds meaning to your personal life and your family's life, and even of your own personal things that you're doing. Because, okay, so basically that by thinking about your inner purpose, what you're about, what your goal is, that allows new horizons to open up before you, and by letting go of the way things are in the exterior, that the gashmis, the physical is all that matters, and thinking about that your main thing inside of you is your ruchnius. That's what does it. So sometimes the best way for that to happen, or not the best way, Abishter is a genius. He could do this without any marvel. But there is a necessity for something to disintegrate in order for there to be something new at the end. The reason why you have to have that space in between is because if you don't have that space in between that's empty, then whatever is going to be created is going to have some relationship to the part before. So to create something brand new, there has to be some kind of letting go of what was there before. So just want to conclude one point in this letter. By all of these things together, specifically, I guess I was referring to living deeper with your family, living deeper with your personal life, living deeper in thinking about your mission statement in this world and what you're really about. Only through this together will there be a greater enhanced success in fulfilling your role in this world, and to see the reward for your efforts by emphasizing and empowering the form over the material, the spirit over the physical, the soul over the body, the godly spark in him, in you, over all that's around you. That's the power of the Mabul that allows us to go there, to go into that space inside of us that is that we ordinarily would naturally ignore because of all the noise. And that's why Lechacha follows Noach, and why Lechacha is part of Parshas Noach. We read Lecha and Mincha because Noach leads to a Lechacha. The Mabul opens our ears and allows us to be able to go higher. Not just it allowed us then, but as Rebbe says over here, that it caused the world to be purified, so it's always possible to get back up. Any questions, comments, criticism? I know we have 3 minutes. I usually ask that question 3 minutes later, but I think there's a lot of stuff to think about today. Go ahead. Right. No questions? All right.
Yes, Rabbi, so are you saying the disintegration that we're experiencing now with COVID and everything else is a preparation for Mashiach?
Everything that's happening in the world certainly is about the coming of Mashiach, for sure. And nothing that's happening now, which Hashem made the world to begin with, is about Mashiach. I just don't like saying those words where you said it, just because it sounds like we're celebrating misfortune of other people. Yeah, I don't have it, so yeah. But
I wasn't doing it on a personal. I was talking about like world, not. I wasn't taking like individual suffering. I'm just talking about like the Gestaltschaft or whatever it's called, the overall picture.
I think that would be good for me to discover my own Mashiach through this whole thing. That's what I think I'm trying to say, is that, Noach, after the flood, what does he do? He gets drunk. He runs away. Some Sifrei Musa write that Noach, what do you want from me? He was depressed. He saw the whole world get destroyed, so he gets drunk. In Hebrew, there's two words. There's bricha, which means to run away, and there's bechira, which means to choose. Many people are saying, "Let me wait. This is all over. Let me wait till this whole thing ends." And that's a shame. That's not the way Hashem wants us to do. Hashem wants us to choose something. By the way, and when I wrote to Rebbe first, when we had to close the shul, I opened Rebbe's letters. Rebbe said, "You have to make sure the shul does not lose its surah, its form," which is the same word that we use in the letter. It's inner meaning, what it's about. This shul has to be developed. You can't just because the physical things are eroding. This shouldn't. Adrab, on the contrary, focus now on what you're here for. There's a window, there's a door opening. When one door is closing, it's causing another door to open. When all doors are closed, it makes you open the door inside.
You brought out this point before about the seed, the acorn.
That's example Chassidus gives. Exactly. Chassidus gives an example. For the seed to produce a tree, it has to disintegrate. I'm sorry. Yes, exactly. Very good. That's exactly what Chassidus says. That's the example Chassidus gives. Very good. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that's the point. I was just going to say.
Yeah,
acorn,
that's exactly the example Chassidus gives. You can have the seed turn into a tree. It has to first disintegrate. Perfect. Exactly. All right. Right, David. Hey, what? David is in town. Whoa. Welcome from Florida. Okay. Shkech Aryeh. Shkech Dr. Bress. Shkech Jonathan. Zeigen, have a great day. Shkech Paul Mendel.